Thanksgiving used to be my favorite holiday. That was before I learned what favoritism looked like up close, before my sister Natalie figured out she could break anything, and I'd be blamed for standing nearby. Before my parents turned family gatherings into performances where I played the joke and she played the jewel. I was 30, but walking into my parents' house that afternoon felt like falling into an old snare. The floors still creaked the same way. The rolls still smelled faintly burnt, and that familiar weight settled into my ribs, heavy and unwelcome. I carried a store-bought pie in one hand, and a tote stuffed with everything my mother had assigned me to bring. Natalie, of course, had been assigned nothing. She works so hard. Sweetheart, she's too delicate for errands. Natalie was 27 and worked part-time at a boutique where she mostly took photos of herself. But my parents spoke about her like she was holding the world together by sheer will. The door barely opened before my mother's gaze swept over me, her mouth tightening. "You're late." "I'm 10 minutes early," I said. She grabbed the pie from my hands as if it offended her. "Your cousin Paige is already here. Your sister's been helping for hours. Honestly, it wouldn't kill you to put in some effort for once." Natalie appeared behind her, draped in a sweater that probably cost more than my rent. "Oh my God," she sighed. "A grocery store pie. You couldn't even pretend you care." I swallowed the heat climbing my throat. "You told me to bring a pie." She rolled her eyes and walked away. My mother muttered, "Always the bare minimum." I stepped inside, already shrinking. Dad was planted in the living room with the TV blaring, surrounded by uncles and cousins. When he saw me, he nodded, not in greeting, but like he was checking off a name on a list. Every Thanksgiving felt like this, like I wasn't really theirs anymore, just someone they tolerated to avoid explaining why their oldest daughter had been quietly discarded. I had a steady job, my own apartment, a life, but to them, I was still the safety net, the one expected to catch Natalie whenever she slipped. By 4 o'clock, the house was packed. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even neighbors who drifted in because my mother loved the illusion of a picture-perfect family. She always saved the worst moments for when there was an audience. Natalie paraded through the dining room, regaling anyone who'd listen with news of her latest opportunity, some influencer program that required networking lunches. She spoke like she was destined for greatness, even if punctuation had never met her. Mom hovered nearby, beaming. Then Dad wandered in, beer in hand, and said loudly enough for the room to hear, "So, sweetheart, did you talk to your sister about the rent?" The air shifted. Conversations dulled. I felt eyes turn. Natalie twirled her hair. "Yeah, she hasn't sent anything yet. I told her you'd take care of it." My stomach dropped. "What?" Mom stepped forward, her stare sharp. "Natalie's rent is due tomorrow. You knew that?" "No," I said slowly. "I didn't. She never told me she needed help." Dad frowned, like I was being difficult on purpose. "It's the same every month, Erica." I blinked. "No, it isn't. You said I'd only help during emergencies." Mom cut me off, sharp as a blade. "This is an emergency. Your sister is building her career. She doesn't need stress." Natalie tilted her head, all practiced innocence. "I just assumed you'd help. You make more than I do." "I make more because I work full-time," I said. "You work 15 hours a week." The room went still. Mom's eyebrows shot up. "How dare you speak to your sister like that on Thanksgiving?" "I didn't say anything wrong," I murmured. Dad rose slowly from his chair, deliberate, familiar, the way he always did when I was about to be put back in my place. "You always ruin holidays with your attitude. Family helps family. Pay the rent." "I help her constantly," I said. "She's never helped me once." Natalie gasped theatrically. "Wow. So now you're attacking me." I tried to respond, but my throat closed. I wasn't attacking anyone. I was drowning. Mom stepped closer, her voice hardening. "Erica, you will pay her rent today." I forced myself to breathe. "I can't. I have my own bills. My car insurance just." Dad moved fast. His hand clamped around my arm and yanked me forward. The room lurched. Chairs scraped. Someone gasped. "Pay her rent," he hissed. "I don't have enough," I said, shaking. Not this month. He shoved me backward. I slammed into the wall near the kitchen, pain exploding through my shoulder. Mom's face twisted, unrecognizable. I am done with you embarrassing this family. Her hand struck my face. The crack echoed through the room. My cheek burned, then went numb. I tasted blood. Forks froze midair. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Mom grabbed my wrist and shook it. "You either pay your sister's rent or get out of my house." Natalie stood with her arms folded, watching like it was her favorite rerun. Dad shouted, "Ungrateful brat, after everything we've done for you." Something inside me shifted, not loudly, just a quiet click, fear sliding into clarity. "Let go of me," I said. My voice was steady. Mom scoffed. "Or what?" I looked around the room, at the people they were desperate to impress, the witnesses, the silence. Every Thanksgiving flashed through me at once, years of being blamed, minimized, shoved aside so Natalie could shine, and now they were willing to beat me in front of everyone to protect the princess they'd made. I straightened. Dad barked, "Don't you walk away from me." But I already was. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I didn't explain. I walked toward the hallway, my cheek burning, my shoulder throbbing, their voices snapping behind me. Natalie called after me, "So you're just leaving, you're abandoning family now." I stopped at the coat rack and turned back. "You picked the wrong day to show everyone who you really are." Mom's smile faltered, Dad's jaw tightened, Natalie's arms dropped. They knew. For the first time in my life, everyone in that room knew. I walked out into the November cold, my face aching, my chest tight, but I wasn't powerless anymore. Something had shifted. And I knew this wasn't the end, it was the beginning. The next morning, my cheek was still swollen, my shoulder throbbed. I stared at my reflection as bruises bloomed beneath my skin, thinking about how easily they'd dragged me back into a nightmare I'd spent years escaping. Mom's voice echoed in my head, "Pay your sister's rent or get out." And the table full of people who watched and said nothing. My phone buzzed. "Natalie. Where's the rent money? Mom said you'd send it this morning." Another message followed. "Stop being dramatic. You can afford it." She could afford rent, she just didn't want to. Why would she, when my parents were willing to terrorize another child into funding her life? Mom called next. I let it ring, then again, then again. Finally, she snapped when I answered. "You embarrassed us. You'll fix it by sending the money, and you'll apologize." I looked at the bruise beneath my eye. "I'm not apologizing." Dad's voice boomed in the background. "You owe us respect." "No," I said quietly, "I don't owe you anything." Silence. Mom recovered first. "If you don't pay, we'll tell the family you attacked us. You know who they'll believe." There it was, the weapon they'd always used. Not truth, not love, reputation. They didn't care what they'd done, they cared who knew. That was their weakness. Aunt Linda called that afternoon, her voice shaking. "I saw everything, Erica. They're telling people you had a breakdown, but if you need me to say what I saw, I will." My breath caught. Linda never took sides, but she'd seen it. The shove, the slap, the room freezing. They were afraid she'd talk. The second crack came hours later, in a text from my cousin Paige. "What your parents did was messed up. They're telling people you lost control, but we saw the truth. If you need statements, we're here." And just like that, the story they'd controlled my entire life started slipping out of their hands. Slowly, the fear I'd carried since childhood began to loosen its grip. For the first time, something fundamental clicked into place. I wasn't the only witness anymore. They couldn't bend the story this time. The room had seen the truth, and my parents had no idea how to survive that. By evening, Dad sent another message. "Let's talk calmly. We can fix this. Just send the money first." Fix it? No, I wasn't fixing anything. I was finally holding them accountable. And I knew how, not with silence, not with forgiveness, not with symbolic distance, but with consequences, real ones. Thanksgiving wouldn't be the end. It was the spark. The fire was just beginning. I stopped answering their calls after that. Dad's carefully worded, let's be reasonable texts. Mom's guilt-soaked rants. Natalie's entitled demands. I let them shout into nothing while I gathered what they never expected me to have, witnesses, screenshots, the truth and support. The next morning, Aunt Linda arrived at my apartment with a travel mug of coffee and a binder tucked under her arm. Yes, she said before I could ask. I wrote a statement. So did 3 others. She handed me the binder. Inside were 4 typed letters, hers, Paige's, Uncle Rob's, even Mrs. Harker's from next door, who'd been standing near the kitchen when my father shoved me. Each one laid it out plainly, the shove, the slap, the shouting, the demand for money, the threats, the humiliation. My throat tightened. I wasn't used to people choosing me. I wasn't used to being believed. Linda squeezed my hand. Your parents' greatest fear isn't the truth. It's losing control of the story. They've owned it for decades. Now it's yours. She was right. They were never afraid of hurting me. They were afraid of being judged, the same weapon they'd used against me my entire life. And Thanksgiving had handed me the perfect opening. That night, the extended family gathered again for a weekend dinner at Aunt Dorothy's house. I usually avoided these events. This time, I went. When I walked in, conversation stalled. My bruised cheek said what I didn't have to. People looked at me differently, like they were finally seeing the scream I'd been carrying for years. Mom went pale. Dad's jaw set. Natalie stiffened. Mom hurried toward me. Don't start anything. Me? I said evenly. I'm not starting anything. I walked past her and set the binder down in the center of the table, beside the turkey. Silence fell. Dad's voice wavered. What is that? The truth, I said. Dorothy opened the binder. Her eyes widened as she read. This all happened in my sister's house, on Thanksgiving. Mom reached for the table. This is exaggerated. No, Dorothy said, lifting the pages. These are written by people with nothing to gain by lying. And we can all see her face. Natalie tried to laugh. It wasn't that serious. Uncle Rob stood. It was serious enough that we watched you benefit while your parents assaulted their daughter. Paige spoke next. They hit her. They screamed at her. They humiliated her. And you let it happen. Natalie's face crumpled, the confidence draining out of her as the room finally stopped protecting her. Dad pointed at me, his voice shaking with rage. You're turning the family against us. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't defend myself. You did that, I said, all by yourselves. Mom tried to recover, forcing on a smile so brittle it looked painful. We were disciplining her. She overreacted. Dorothy snapped the binder shut. You put your hands on a grown woman over rent money. That's abuse, not discipline. A murmur rippled through the room. I can't believe they did that. This is disgusting. My parents felt it then, the shift, the loss of control, the shame. Their faces drained the same way they'd drained mine hundreds of times before. Mom reached for me, her voice cracking. Sweetheart, let's talk privately. No, I stepped back as if her hand burned. No more private conversations. No more closed doors where you tell me I imagined everything. Dad tried next. Softer now. Just sit with us. We can fix this. You can't, I said. You didn't hurt me in private. You don't get to fix this in private. The room buzzed with whispers. The audience they depended on, the one that always protected them, was slipping away. Natalie spoke, her voice small and uncertain. So, are you still paying my rent? I looked at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. Never again. Her lips trembled. But I can't afford. That's not my problem, I said. It never was. Mom swayed, like the floor had tilted beneath her. You're really doing this to your family? No, I said. You did this. I just stopped covering for you. Then Aunt Linda stood. Her voice carried across the room, steady and unyielding. Until you both get professional help and offer a real apology, without lies or excuses, you are not welcome at any future family gatherings. The reaction was instant. Gasps, whispers, shock. It was worse than any punishment I could have delivered. Worse than consequences. Worse than confrontation. They were being cut off from the spotlight they lived for. Dad's voice cracked. You can't be serious. She was, and so was everyone else. Heads nodded, eyes stayed fixed. The silence they once relied on was gone. Mom turned to me one last time, desperation breaking through. Erica, please, don't let this happen. We can fix last night. Just don't let them. I stepped back again, for the last time. This isn't revenge, I said quietly, it's accountability. And for the first time in 30 years, they understood the difference. I walked out while they pleaded behind me, not with authority, not with superiority, but with fear, real fear. The door closed, cold air rushed into my lungs, sharp and clean. Freedom, finally, had a temperature. Thanksgiving had begun with them hurting me in front of everyone. It ended with everyone watching the truth catch up to them. And for once, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel weak. I felt finished, completely, permanently finished.